listening to the Becoming More Me podcast with me, Teresa Lear Levine. You're already enough. But if you're anything like me, you thrive when you're stretching and developing yourself, creating more of the person you feel called to be. This podcast is here to inspire and support you. Let's release the negative, reinforce the positive, and elevate our vibe together as we tap into our limitless potential to transform and grow. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Becoming More Me. I'm very pleased to introduce my guest today, who I have been really enjoying getting to know over the last few months. I have with me today Vanessa Simpkins. She is the founder of Take Your Power Back Now, which is a 7-figure women's empowerment company. It's also the name of her best-selling book that launched a global movement by sharing the story she never really wanted to share about healing from a toxic relationship and thriving. Now, her own healing journey through divorce and healing trauma and deep diving into the duality of life and shadow work has led to a full, rich life as an intuitive healing artist, helping leaders break through and heal their inner resistance, visibility and intimacy blocks, and body shame. All good stuff. Vanessa has been featured on Fox, ABC, CBS, and NBC television, as well as the Huffington Post. Now, you'll find, I'm sure, as we talk, that Vanessa is one massively passionate lady who believes fully in the magic of new beginnings and their correlation to healing, as well as explosive and creative growth. Welcome to the show, Vanessa.
Hey, thanks for having me, Teresa. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So share with us a little bit more, fun facts about you, who you are, and just a little bit more of your essence and what you're up to.
Right. Well, I live here in Mount Shasta, California, Northern California, with this big, beautiful mountain. It's a very spiritual place. I live between here and Kauai, Hawaii, which is another really big spiritual place, kind of portal for divine feminine and healing and birthing and creativity and artistry. And I'm very spiritual. I'm a Capricorn, so I'm really grounded. In human design, I'm a 4/1 opportunistic investigator with a juxtaposition cross. And my life, I'm learning more. I'm really diving into human design these days, which is, I'm in this mystical part of my life. So I'm 43 years old, and I learned this recently, which is super interesting. And it'll tell a little bit maybe about the recent journey I've been on in the last 2-3 years. So we're born, right? And the first 42 years of our life kind of goes up on this big trajectory until we hit this parable. And the top of the parable is 42. And it's like where we're coming from. We're conditioned from life. We're conditioned from our family, society. And it's like where we're coming from. It's like this big push hustle. And then you hit 42, you hit the top of that parable. And then the latter part of your life is like where you're going.
Yeah.
And it's a discovery.
Feel that.
You feel that. And it's a discovery. It's an unknown, right? So 41, moved to Mount Shasta, got separated, divorced, dove into shadow work, like holy smoke, had this like multi-million-dollar, $3 million plus business, running masterminds, running retreats in Hawaii and California with amazing rock star women, big team of 30 people. And I'm like, this doesn't feel good anymore. Like this is working for everybody else but me. And then spent, a good 2 years kind of like rediscovering who I am and what lights me up and disappointing people by showing up for myself instead of abandoning myself. And, I can see now after this, year of kind of burning everything down to remake it, these intuitive and kind of psychic gifts really show up. The more I started cleansing my body, the more, psychic and intuitive, those gifts have always been using them in business. And, I had 60 people on a mastermind call. And, they just pepper me with questions and, would pour out rad copy and help them, with their own like worthiness and deservingness blocks and clarity. And so I use it for business and it worked really well. It's like more, it's just more. And so I'm really passionate about
that you shared about the age, the 42 thing. Is that a human design philosophy or where does that stem from?
Yeah, it's a human design philosophy. And it's like when I look at it, I'm like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
My life was really at 42. I spent a year kind of burning everything and like grabbing on and trying to hang on to like what I knew and like, how do I let go of this program that's made me $12 million and helped thousands of women around the world? And I don't want to do that anymore. Like there's more things I want to do. There's more
Right.
tools I have. I've been this artist. So I'm the daughter of a famous artist, and my father was a famous artist. His father, my grandfather, my two great uncles, famous Canadian artists. I'm from Canada originally, and most of my adult life I've been doing nude photo shoots, but no one's ever seen those until now. And that's come out of healing trauma and being like, hey world, I don't want to hide
Right.
anymore who I am.
A little piece of what makes you good at helping others with their visibility blocks, for sure.
Yeah. And so like when you really show up, when you like really do the work, and it's excruciating, like it's painful, like it's not there's nothing fun about doing that deep healing work. But on the other side, and so there's this song called Other Side by Monolink, and I'm a dancer and I love I'm a photographer. I turn my 4-car garage, I have this external garage on the property here. I got like 6 chickens in a chicken coop, a big garden, a big outdoor garage. I turn in this goddess temple with a stripper pole and a photo place, and there's infrared sauna. It's a workout zone. There's like art tables, and it's like all the things.
Nice. I think you were having the pole installed one of the last times that we talked. That's pretty recent. How are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it's happening. I'm still learning how to I'm very much learning. I have a good friend of mine coming over, and she used to have a dance studio, a pole studio in Ashland, and she's like a rock star. I'm like, come over and teach me some moves, right? So it's just amazing, all the pieces. But the point I want to make is that the more healing is revealing. It's one thing I learned. Healing is revealing. Like the outcome of doing that work is so worth it.
Right.
And there are still some people that are never going to understand it. Still judge you, all the things. And I think
the idea of getting more conscious is not appealing to a lot of people. Is what I've kind of learned. A lot of people just could not care less about becoming more conscious. They're quite happy to, just kind of put their head in the sand.
I think that's true until life becomes really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't think people really make that choice until something drastic happens, like a burnout or a divorce or, a chronic health issue that is just, you can't really avoid that anymore. That's what, because we're creatures of habits. Humans, let's just have a good life and enjoy our life. And yes, that's the purpose of life. But
even if it's bad, the discomfort is like our discomfort. And we can be pretty stubborn about hanging on to that versus going through that excruciating pain that you talked about and that I'm familiar with too, that, does take you through to something much better, but it requires getting a lot more uncomfortable than we already are, which I think a lot of people find unappealing.
It's unappealing because it's work, but it's I call it that comfortable uncomfortable.
Yes.
That's really it, the comfortable uncomfortable. And so like I'm available to have rad conversations with awakening women, with awakened women, and those are the more aligned, the more embodied, the more fully expressed I become, the more those are the people that connect. And I feel like we're in this time of radical alignment. Like anything that's not aligned is like poof, gone. Oh, there goes that business model. Oh, there goes that friendship. Oh, there goes that relationship. Like, okay. And something else comes into, to meet you on that frequency, on that, on this new vibe, or
when you're tuned in, it can happen really fast.
Your life changes in an instant.
Right. Yeah, that's my favorite part of healing, I think, too, is that it doesn't have to take forever. And I think that's an area where a lot of people can get hung up thinking like, gosh, this traumatic event, developed over years or decades or whatever. And now I'm going to heal it like in a day, a week, whatever. They don't believe it, but it's so possible.
Well, it's so possible and it's so true, and it does happen. I want to share a little story. So I got a link from a dear friend of mine that I've known for many years. We used to live with her, and through our college years in Canada. And I was doing this inner process the other day. So I'm like going back, reparenting this part of myself. And she sends me a link the following day. And the link that she sends me is a link to a real estate link for my old childhood house that I grew up in for sale.
Wow.
And when I look at this house that I grew up in, that, I grew up with, yeah, my dad was a rad, artist, but he was an alcoholic and, broke artist. And so all my judgments about art and blah, blah.
Sure.
My mom was a hoarder, was a nurse, like classic abandoning self to help others. Did that too. Or to keep love close, did that too. And so like all my ideas around childhood and that house, all of a sudden I see this, you cannot recognize this house. But what an incredible reflection.
Yeah.
And you might say, okay, well, that's just coincidence, Vanessa. But let me tell you what, understanding the duality of life, understanding the reflectionary universe that we live in was one of the trippiest experiences to really swallow, digest. Like I thought I was living in some kind of sci-fi, like, wow. And my life is like that. It's very mystical. I have this gate of 54, 50, 54, 50, 53, which is like new beginnings, endings and new beginnings, cycles, and mystic, like mystical. And this is my life. I live in the woods, in the mountains with my chickens and my garden. And
your stripper pole, it's all, it's all really normal.
It's maybe for people that are, I think
I love it. I think it's awesome.
Very, very mystical. So that was just like one of the reflections that how fast, things can change.
Yeah.
Even your whole concept of childhood, that whole house, what it represented, completely different, completely changed.
Yeah. Whoa. I went through a lot of healing when I revisited my childhood house, like with like a drive-by sort of a situation. And there was a lot that came up for me and a lot that I was able to release around that. And it was pretty cool. So I definitely, I feel what you might have experienced on a certain level, and that's pretty cool. And when you're working with people or when you're working with yourself, what are some of your favorite ways to like move that trauma or those experiences out of your body?
Yeah, dancing at high five, like all the way. So dancing, embodiment, photography. There was a time when I first got started with this, I was going to hire a yoga teacher because I was like, I had so much pain in my body. I had a neck that kind of blew out on me 4 years in a row at the same time every year. And it would, I couldn't sit, I couldn't lie down. I was on painkillers for months, couldn't work out. That happened 4 years in a row. This is the first year it did not happen.
Did you feel like there were underlying emotional causes for that?
Of course, it's all related to emotions, right? It's in your tissues, right? Your issues are in your tissues. So
yes,
you have to get it out of your body. And so I was hiring a yoga teacher, and I used to put these yoga classes here in Mount Shasta. And I remember, leaving the yoga class thinking maybe if I got hit by a car, it'd be a good way out of the mess that I created in my life. Like I felt really and that was like a big wake up call. So I started dancing in my kitchen. I started, moving. So the movement and music for me is healing. I have a quote upstairs that says like, you can't buy happiness, but you can play music, and that's pretty darn close. And then I love pole dancing. I love working out. I do this like beach body little 30-minute fitness thing in the morning, and photography, because I have the whole house is kind of like a photo studio. And so is inside the garage, but to get a new identity, you're getting, basically you are completely recreating yourself from the inside out. Right. So dance, photography, yoga, breath work, those are some of the somatic tools. And then, the inner tools, well, there's inner bonding, there's reparenting your inner child. I did a lot of work in my career as a business coach around, assuming the state of the wish fulfilled, like going to like law of attraction, Neville Goddard, And that's still really good and true.
Powerful.
But there's like this whole other level of like attachment theory and, you know, and really your connection to God. Like if anything, that's all of this has brought me is much more closer in my relationship to whatever you want to call that higher power, source, spirit, universe, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. I don't really care what you call it. Just call it, connect with that source every day.
Yeah.
It's magical. So,
And do you feel like you get certain signs or guidance that comes to you in evident ways through that connection?
oh man, so much so that sometimes I have to turn it off.
Yeah.
Like I have to eat a burger and French fries to be like, "Doof." So the more cleaner I've become, I did these cleanses and, dropped 20 pounds. It's great. I feel rad in my body. I'm 43 years old. I'm in about the same shape I was in my 30s, my early 30s. And I lived in Hawaii and I called myself a bikini business coach and ran around little bikinis all day. I'm 43 now. I feel rad in my body, but the more I cleanse, the more psychic signs land. And it has to do with food. So sometimes it's like a bit much, like I'm going to eat something really heavy and just like tone it down. And I've had to learn like how to deliver things to people and if it should be delivered, if it should even be spoken. But I'm going to share a story, a really rad story, vulnerable rad story about the signs I get. I had this little dog, Houdini, that I rescued from the Humane Society in Hawaii 8 years ago. And Houdini was the deal that we had was you're going to stick around until it's time for me to have a baby. He would never be around to see my children, but that was the deal. And in February, my ex-partner and I were on a bike trail here in Redding down the mountain. And there was this black butterfly. And my ex-partner went with his bike to pick it up and he brought it over to me and he said, "Hey, this guy got hit. I don't think he's going to make it. I think I'm going to put him down here to die." And on the ground, somebody had written in chalk, "Praise the name of God." And I freaked out inside. I didn't speak it to him, but I was like, who's dying? Am I dying? Are you dying? Is our relationship dying? Is my dark shadow dying? Like, what the heck is dying? Right. So butterflies are really important because my name, Vanessa, in Latin means butterfly. And so it's just rad signs. I taken my little dog. My family came to visit here. Hadn't seen my family in like 3-4 years. Hadn't met my little niece who was 2 years old. They came to visit, had a great trip with them. My mom, my sister, my little niece. And I took Houdini to the airport to drop them off because I was going to get a tattoo that says surrender with a butterfly on my arm. This new stage of like just surrendering to like the mystical side of my life, this very creative, mystical space in me that, I used to be able to pull from this really deep well of masculine energy to like pull me and hold me away from feeling pain or painful emotions or to like overwork or to do whatever the heck it was. And that I go to the well and there ain't nothing in there. It's dry. And I don't mind one bit. It's a new liberation, peace, surrender. It's a completely different way of living. And anyways, I was going to go, since it's a 3-hour drive, bring, the dog, and it's not going to stay by himself for 8-10 hours. So and he doesn't really like truck rides. So I brought him with me. And then my sister's like, "Are you crazy? You got your period. You're not going to go get a tattoo. You're going to be in so much pain." I'm like, "Oh, you're right." And I was exhausted. So I turned around with the dog, brought him home. And he passed. Had to put him down the following day. I'm missing a big part of the story about like, I get home and I see him on top of the steps and I'm like, oh man, I had this idea like, wow, he's going to pass away, and I'm like, I feel so guilty. I'm like, geez, good things are happening, Vanessa, and make a prayer. Hey, when it's his time to go, God, let it be quick. 'Cause he's been such a sweet little boy. I don't want him to suffer. And then 5 minutes later, he fell down the stairs and was in a lot of pain all night long. I thought he was going to pass away, but I knew. And they gave me this like look in the kitchen and I was like, oh my God, I broke down like that. I knew, like he looked at me like, that's it, And so I took him to the vet the following day And, of course the vet's like, put him down or he's going to be on oxygen his whole life. I'm like, it's no way to go. And brought him back, buried him in the garden. He'd always loved to be with me in the garden. And then I kind of landed, that black butterfly was Houdini. It's my little black baby, right? Little Vanessa butterfly. And so I go and put some flowers, on top of his grave, and I bring them into the garden. And I decided to like pick up the hose and just water the other garden beds. And this little black butterfly comes, lands right on top of his grave, and just hangs out there for 20 minutes while I water the whole garden. I mean, signs like, so I hadn't really realized that until then, but that was a sign. So I get everything is a sign.
Sure.
Everything is, so life can be like this coincidence, or it can be absolutely filled with magic and meaning. And I'd rather live my life on the magical meaning side.
Sure.
So I get a lot of signs from nature, a lot of signs every day, and something signs around death are new for me. Like those, how did, I can realize when something's big. And so that's kind of a new chapter of like, connecting those dots, or if it should even be shared with people.
And you shared the sweetest picture of Houdini, and it was your niece, right? After he passed.
It was so rad. He was like this proud, like, I made it, Mom. Like,
I know, it was a beautiful picture. Really sweet.
And then it was so weird because my little niece had actually so I came home from the airport, here's Houdini, and my little niece had left a toy baby carriage with a baby in it on my front porch. Like, hey, here's what's coming in the front door.
Interesting.
And then somebody had called me. I missed a phone message. I put my wedding ring for sale on consignment at the store in Reading, and I got a message. Somebody wants to buy your wedding ring. And then there were all these skunks. So this is how I perceive life. So these skunks, right? Skunks, there's 4 of them inside the chicken coop. And finally, and all this is happening. Take Houdini down to the vet, and there's another skunk. I open up the door. Oh my God, there's a skunk. Close the thing. Like, wow, this, what is going on here? So skunks, you can read all meanings of symbology of animals, but skunks have to do with facing your fears.
Okay.
And I think for a long time, I was really afraid of like this, having kids, and also just this way of living.
Right.
It's completely out of control. Like I'm not controlling or forcing this. So yeah, it's a space of surrender.
So did you follow through and get the tattoo?
I didn't yet, because it's the 4th of July. Here's another really interesting thing, and it's 4th of July weekend, and in the United States, like everyone's out drinking and partying and like, look how cool I am on social media and like, woo. And I'm just like, I'm going to sit in my hammock. I'm going to paint my deck. I'm going to go to a barbecue at a friend's house, go paddle boarding. Like, I'm just going to chill out here, do what I want to do.
Yes.
And I just wasn't interested in like driving 2 hours. And so I'll get it, for sure. That's a for sure. But it's almost like I knew it was happening before it happened. So this is this kind of wild.
You were right where you needed to be, right when you needed to be there. And that's beautiful in and of itself. So when you wrote your book, what year did your book come out?
Well, I've got 2 books. This one came out in 2014. That's the book that really put my work on the map. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And your second book is called what?
It's my first book. It's called
From
Bankrupt to Making $900 a Day Selling Mops. It's about like the law of attraction, sales meets marketing.
Yes, because you have a pretty long history with like multi-level marketing and things like that, kind of like me, right? You've done a lot of that.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's pretty awesome. And you've done really well for yourself with that. Now, when you decided to write Take Your Power Back Now, what was the catalyst for sharing a story that seemed so difficult to share?
I didn't want to share it. So I was running around to these like, entrepreneur networking mastermind programs. And I had my little From Bankrupt to $900 a Day Selling Mops book. And that was like safe and easy to talk about like sales. And
Right.
yeah, I went bankrupt, and then I learned about law of attraction and made a bunch of money and sold a bunch of mops and lint removers doing these product demos. But like, I didn't want to tell people about this story, of kind of, um, waking up from a really toxic relationship with a guy that nearly killed me in a hotel room. Um, and I think I met these women. There was a woman, her name was, I think Maria, in the bathroom at one of these events. And I told her the story, and she's a big like publicist woman. And she's like, you've got to tell that story. And I was like, oh, hell no. Uh-uh. No, 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 no. Let's just leave that one alone. And then, the things that showed up, I met a rad ghostwriter at a Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. And he's like, that's your next book. And then I had a conversation with a psychic when I was living in Hawaii. And she's like, you've got this little, speedboat of a business, but you're going to have an oil tanker. And I was like, is it this story? And she's like, yep. And Houdini was actually really massively part of that. So I had taken him on this trip. It's an 11-mile hike to this very sacred place in Kauai called the Kalalau Valley, which is where, it's like the ancient Hawaiian spirit trail where the kahunas would go and spend 6 months of their 2-year apprenticeship back in this valley. And, the Dalai Lama is called this, like, Kauai has got like the entrance and the exit portal for souls on the planet. And I used to go back into Kalalau like once a month, spend a week there. I would hike in, I would, boat in, jet ski in with friends, camp under my favorite tree, and just really the energy, the synchronicities that happen. I don't even know how to explain that, how magical that place is. But so I took Houdini out there, and he got lost. I took his collar off. I was like, "Here we are, free. We can run naked with the hippies, right?" and he got spooked, and he took off, and he was gone for 21 days.
Oh, wow.
And then I put posters everywhere. And then this one morning, I was having 3 very important conversations. And the first one was with this writer dude who's like, let's write the book. And I was like, okay, God, if you want me to write the book, fine, I'll write the dang book. The next conversation was with this retreat thing. And I was like, fine, if you want me to run a retreat, I'll run the dang retreat. Yes. And then the third conversation was like speaking on stages. And I was like, fine, if you want me to do speaking, I will do that too. And I get a phone text. Oh, hey, we found your little dog Houdini. Come pick him up at the end of the road. And I was like, God was like, yeah, you gonna live your purpose. Here's your little dog back. I was like, oh my God. Aww. And so that's kind of the story of Houdini. People are like, change his name, with a name like Houdini. I was like, yeah. So that's kind of how, the book was kind of birthed, and it was written in 6 weeks. Every morning I'd get up and work with this ghostwriter and organize it and write a chapter a day. And then it became a bestseller. And then I moved to Southern California and brought Houdini with me, shipped my truck, and started getting into the whole, event space and speaker space in Southern California, which is like the space for all of that. And went on, did all the national television stuff and live events and blah, blah. And the team started, it just grew into this movement. It felt like I was on a freight train hanging on with an umbrella, like flying, with the momentum of business for 8 years. And it's so funny because I bought a house in the mountains with a train in the backyard. So I call it the love train because it honks 4 times. I bought the house so fast. I went to a yoga retreat, jumped into the lake here down the street, Siskiyou Lake. And I just fell in love with this like snow peak mountain. I'm in the water looking at this beautiful snow peak mountain. And I was like, I called my CFO at the time. I was like, I'm going to buy a house here. Like, what can I afford? And bought the first house I saw. I bought the trees. I have these like 200-foot monster trees on my property. Beautiful. And I was like, the house, whatever, we'll edit it. And then the train came by, I got like waiting for the keys to like, bought the house. And I'm like, what was that? Oh my God. What was that? Right? Train honks 4 times. And it's so magical. So I call it the love train because it will come by and honk at the most incredible times. It's like, it's beyond, it's not even funny. It's just like
Another
confirmation,
one of those signs, validations and such. That's so cool. So how long ago did you
Yeah.
move to Mount Shasta?
I bought the house in 2018, took a year and a half to really gut it and renovate it. And then I moved, I think the first year it was like an Airbnb. And then I moved into it during the pandemic in 2020, March of 2020.
Yeah. So what did you do to shift your business from, the point of burnout to what you're doing now?
Well, that was really hard. It was really hard to like let people go, or people, people change, people quit. It's really interesting when you're not aligned with something, even if you try and hang on to it, it just won't work. I tried hiring several different and even though I didn't want to do my business that way anymore, I still wanted to make it work.
Yeah.
But I didn't want the massive responsibility. I didn't want to babysit people. Not that I babysit clients, but managing a team of 30 people, I'm not interested in that. The end. I'm a creative artist. I'm not a manager. The end. So Vanessa's not happy unless she gets to like have time and space for creativity. So what I ended up doing was just following what really was like, a yes. And when the travel opened up, I was like, oh, I'm going to go to Hawaii. And then I was like, maybe I'll, my friend from Hawaii, one of my clients as well, she's like, hey, I've got this rad retreat space. When are you coming? I think it's around the same time. Do you want to stay here and maybe run a retreat here? I was like, well, let me put it out there. And, magically these amazing women showed up and we had a rad retreat, so embodiment, dance, doing some of the inner work, rad photo shoots in this epic waterfall. I mean, it was like a beautiful
Nice.
home. It was perfect for that space. And then I was like, well, I really enjoy doing that. And I do have some clients, and I have a real estate agent that I'm working with who's, very successful and is really working on her relationship with self and love. And another client of mine who's a previous client of mine is, took my course years ago and is now a millionaire and doing really well and growing her business. She's like, kind of lost myself on this journey. I want to really break into my own intimacy and work on this relationship with my husband. So I do have some coaching clients online, and then I'm also running retreats here at my house, because these two locations, like Mount Shasta and Kauai, Hawaii, they're magical places. That's all I can tell you. People come from all
They
around the
sound like
world.
it.
They come from all around the world. People think that like UFOs, the Lemurians, everybody lives inside that mountain. And I like, at this stage in the game, I would not be surprised if the UFOs landed on my front yard. I'm not seen one yet, but it's a very magical place. So I decided to open up my home as for like private and semi-private retreats. I have a client showing up here on Friday.
Nice.
And it's kind of like customizable, like pick your adventure. You want to go, mountain biking or swimming or paddle boarding or hiking the mountain. I think there's waterfalls all around, 20-minute drive, 10-minute drive from my house. And then some people, I want to do more inner work, embodiment, photo shoots, dance. Some people want to do a cleanse. I mean, it's really just like a more customizable experience. Yummy, nourishing food. There are a ton of healers here, from massage to body work, anything you can imagine. So I'm really enjoying that. Really enjoying that. And then travel is also, a big new piece that landed for me. So
It's so nice that we can travel again like we were able to do a few years ago, isn't it? Like, oh, can't get enough.
hallelujah. I mean, I think it's really an industry that is going to absolutely explode here over the next few years.
Yeah,
And
everybody's
I
so
did
happy to
not,
get out of their houses.
I did not expect to be doing this at all, but I'm in this new place of like, well, I'm just surrender and like respond to what comes.
Yeah, if it
And
feels
this was
right, go
like
for it. Why not?
was a yes. This was a yes. So, um, yeah, it's exciting. Life is a magic carpet ride. I'll tell you
Yeah.
that.
And you've made enough decisions in your life to know when they're good and when they're not, It's so nice when we get a little older and we can trust ourselves even more than we ever have when you've done all the work that you've done and become more intuitively guided. For
Yeah,
sure.
it's a trip.
Yeah. So if people want to learn more about you or work with you or come visit you in Mount Shasta for a retreat, where can they find out more?
Yeah, I'd love that. The best place is on my website, takeyourpowerbacknow.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Vanessa Simpkins. I respond to Facebook Messenger a lot. I'm on Instagram, Vanessa Simpkins. I'm on YouTube, but I think the easiest way to get my attention would be on Facebook Messenger. And if you want to visit my website, see some of the retreat pictures, some of the images, testimonial videos, those kinds of things, the website takeyourpowerbacknow.com is where to go.
Amazing. I will make sure all of that is in the show notes for the listeners to make things easy for everyone. And I always enjoy talking to you. So thank you for sharing more of your stories, which are always entertaining and inspiring, and just more of who you are so that I can share it with my crew, because we're all about becoming more of who we want to be here. And you are obviously a great example of doing just that. So thanks for joining me today, Vanessa.
Oh, thank you so much, Teresa, for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks so much for listening. If you loved this episode, please share it with a friend or post on social media and tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave action steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. Keep shining your light.